Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Kahn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's A-M-P-I-R-E. It is always much appreciated when you tune in. Today, I'm joined by Mississippi State quarterbacks coach Darcel McBath, who coached Emmauel Forbes in college. He had some really interesting insight on what the Commanders' first-round pick is like and why he is such an effective corner and why the weight is not something that he was worried about in college, although he did have some concerns when he first put him in the game, because wait till you hear what he weighed as a freshman. So there was some concern with him there. And then what he found is it didn't make a difference. So there are things he can do to mitigate it. But also he talks about that interception against Kentucky, why he made that play. Very interesting. And I think it shows what the Commanders really got. So good stuff. So stay tuned for that. Before I get there, just a couple little nuggets for you. Let's start with Chase Roullier and Andrew Norwell, because at some point they are going to be cut. It's really just a matter of making sure they're both cleared physically to do all the activities, because then you can make some moves there. Now, here's what Washington has, again, approximately $3 million in available cap space. Their rookie salaries are included in that. So they have $3 million. You can, if you cut Roullier and Norwell, if you make it a pre-June 1 release, which means all the money goes onto this year's cap, then they would save it's about 6.8 million on the cap combined. If you make it post-June 1 and you spread it out over this year and next year, you're saving almost $12.7 million or approximately 12.7 on the cap. That would give you enough to do whatever you want this year, as far as whether if you want to pick someone else up, if you need to make a couple in-season moves, you can do that. And as I told you, they definitely are still in the market for another linebacker. So that's still on the list. They have to go do it. We've talked about that, so I don't want to waste time on that. And then let's get to Kendall Fuller. I don't see him going anywhere, folks. He's, like I said, and because they drafted a couple of different corner and someone who can play the slot in Quan Martin, there was a talk about that, but I don't get the sense that he's going to go anywhere. They don't have to make a move with him because they have the cap room with what they have now. And so we'll just leave it right there. And then when you look at like their undrafted free agents, they signed 12 the other day. Was it 5 receivers? When you look at the receiver depth chart, they could use a couple more guys. I mean, I know they signed Marcus Kemp in the offseason. They lost Cam Sims. They still have Dax Milne. And then you have the top 4, McLaurin, Samuel, Dotson, and then De'Ami Brown. But De'Ami Brown's got to do something. So, but that would be your top 4. So they did sign 5 guys, see what they can do there. Kaz Allen, guy from UCLA, is a very fast guy. So he's an interesting one to watch. See if he also helped as a returner in college. But now the thing they really need as a returner is a punt returner. They can always use Antonio Gibson as a kick returner as long as he's not being a primary back. That's the role they see for him because they want to get him more touches with the ball. So anyway, there you go. And now I will say the top 2 undrafted free agents that they signed for them, or their top 2 targets, one was guard Mason Brooks, and I told you about him before. The other one was safety Kendall Smith from Illinois, another Illinois guy. But they had 4 top targets. Those were 2 of them. And so just so you know, and it doesn't always mean anything. Like every time they sign these guys, I always hear pretty much about almost every guy, watch out for this guy. He's going to make the roster. Somebody's always right because I hear about 7 or 8 guys. So, and usually you're going to get a couple of guys. And even with the way the practice squads are now, you can get guys on there, but they can always be elevated. It's a lot easier than it was before. So it's a little bit different. So anyway, now you know all that. And then, one of the things that you start to hear early on too is one thing I just want to go over this real quick, and I'll probably spend more time on this on future podcasts, but everybody was worried about the offense, rightfully so. There's a lot of things that have to be improved, but I don't think you can understate the difference that I think Eric Bieniemy can make as an offense coordinator. It's not about the play calls, folks. And I remember I played this a couple questions I asked Andy Reid at the owners meetings. That was on our YouTube page where, and if you didn't see that, you can go back and listen to it. And I asked him what all that goes into being an offense coordinator, because it's way more than just calling plays. And Andy Reid was pretty good on that, just kind of going over the things that you do. But I think for Bieniemy, it's also, it's changing, it's adding energy, it's changing the structure, it's providing a different level of expectations, but also how the relationships that he builds with players. It's so much more than just calling plays. And I think you cannot underscore that impact. And, you talk to some people over there and they're like, I don't know how this guy isn't a head coach when they're around him because of what they feel. So I would just say, if they have a good year, he's going to be a one and done here. But that if he's one and done here, it means they had a really good year. So, but I just like when people start looking at the offense, you need to include that change as part of the overall offensive landscape, because I do think that's a pretty big one. And it's, you hear again about the way he goes about dealing with some of the players and just how they are on the field, and just some of the structure and the changes that he is not shy about going to Rivera, for example, and saying, hey, can we change this? Can we change that? Can we tweak this, tweak that, adapt this? But he always gives a reason why he wants to do something. So, just understand that I think he might be the biggest pickup they made all off season was that. And so when you're looking at offense, everybody's worried about, oh my God, they didn't draft a tight end. Well, I never thought they would, or I didn't think they would. But the point is, the left guard, oh my God, the left guard. Bieniemy, I think, is going to be, well, if they do well, I think it's as much because they hired Bieniemy and he brought a different sort of attitude, not just the attitude, but just the way he's building that offense, the way he connects with players. I think it's on a far, far different level than I think it was with Scott Turner, who was, that's not what he does, or that's not what he did. And so I think that matters. I think Tavita Pritchard is a lot like that as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that, the impact that makes on the field. But I would just say, when you're looking at the offense and what they've added, you have to include that as a major change, and something that could pay more dividends than, again, if they had gone out. I'll tell you what, if they kept Scott Turner and they go out and get this great left guard, they're better off with what they have with Bieniemy and then a left guard or whomever. So it's got to play out. They've got to do well in the field, and they have to get good quarterback play from Sam Howell. But I do think Bieniemy could be a pretty big change for them. So we'll see. Long way to go before it, but I do think it's something to pay attention to, see how it develops, and just the little changes internally that occur because of it. So there you go. Anyway, that's enough from me. I will say Darcel McBath was really good. So let's get to him. Here's my conversation with Mississippi State quarterbacks coach and former NFL player, Darcel McBath.
Well, listeners, in case you didn't get enough sports today, here's an ad break that'll tell you how to watch even more sports. YouTube is the new home of NFL Sunday Ticket. And if you sign up now, you'll get our lowest full season price of the year. Just go to youtube.com/presale to get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket. Watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday afternoon games, exclusively on YouTube and YouTube TV. All right, enough about sports. Go get more sports. Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends June 6th. No refunds.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile. And I know it's hard to believe Mint can be any good for just $15 a month. So let's ask Wasim Iknabi, one of Mint's first customers, if he has any issues with Mint.
No, the service has been great.
And under my ownership, it's going to get even better.
How?
No clue.
Still $15 a month though, right?
Yep. To learn more and see our logo, go to mintmobile.com/Spotify.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Did you know the largest ropes course and zipline park in the country is right here in the DMV? Located in the heart of Montgomery County, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring combines climbing and ziplining to create an aerial obstacle course unlike any other. With challenges anywhere from 10 to 75 feet in the air, there is something for all skill levels. Looking for some family time or the perfect date night before football season starts? You can even climb and zip line under the stars. Would you rather keep your feet on the ground? Give axe throwing a try. With their projector systems, you can throw at traditional targets, play tic-tac-toe, connect four, or even hunt zombies. Listeners of this show can get $5 off any ticket by entering the code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, K-E-I-M 23DC. So there you have it, folks. Climbing, ziplining, axes, food, and bonfires right in your backyard. The weather is warming up, so it's the perfect time to head outside and join the adventure at www.theadventurepark.com. That's www.theadventurepark.com and enter promo code KEIM23DC. Well, Coach, let's just start with, in general, what is Washington getting in Emmauel Forbes?
I mean, they're getting an unbelievable football player. I mean, a ball hawk, someone with great instincts, tough, physical, but does all the things that you cannot coach. You know, all the things that come natural to him that you want a guy to do. He can do them, and which puts him a cut above so many other players.
Well, one of those things, Darcel, that he can do very well, as you know, is pick passes off, and he returns it for touchdowns. And it's funny because I know, like, you know, they're all, you can get tip pass, you can do this, you can do that, but certain guys just know how to get the ball.
Yeah.
Why does he do such a good job in that area?
Well, because it's always on his mind. You know, he's not just covering a receiver to cover it. You know, he's wanting to dominate the route so that he can take the ball away. You know, we always say there's 22 guys on the field, there's one ball, and if you can get it more than other guys, you're more valuable. And he really takes hold of that. He understands that putting the ball in his hands, taking the ball away from the offense can change the game. And he's played receiver before, and he has those receiver skills, and it's just in him, and it's a trait that has never left him.
But you played in the league. You've coached.
Yep.
Like, everybody wants to take the ball away, but he doesn't. So are there different things? Because it's like you can want it, but it's different between wanting it and them doing it as consistently as he's done it. So when I look, you know, when I watch some stuff of him before the draft and all that, he seems like a very smart guy too, and putting himself in position to go make those plays.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that puts him a cut above. You know, he studies the game, right? He understands formations and tendencies. And when we talk about those things leading up to a game, you know, that's when he really gets into the game plan. You know, he's the best I've been around in terms of coaching him and telling him, hey, when you see this, you're only getting a couple of things, right? You're only getting a couple of routes. He can recognize things in the middle of a game that most guys can't. It takes him 3 or 4 times to get it. You know, he usually gets it on the first try. He's just that sharp. He's always a step ahead. He's always playing chess. The game has never been too fast for him. You know, he's always been looking for those opportunities. But again, to your point, above the neck football, he's always prepared himself for those opportunities.
What's an example of a play where you say, like, you took him, like you went like that? Would you remember a game or anything in particular?
I can think of 10, but I'll give you my favorite. Okay, we're playing Kentucky. They do a 2-point play on the goal line versus Florida. So I show it that morning. You know, I think they did it once or twice during the season, but I only show it once, and I show it Saturday morning before the game. I said, you know, we get this Z in motion, 3rd and short, 2-point play situation. This is one of their go-to plays. The play comes up in the game, and he just jumped the route. He gets the same similar formation. It wasn't exactly the same, right? They got good coaches, a similar formation. He gets the Z in motion. He sees it, jumps it, takes it to the house.
That was the interception against Kentucky. I was going to ask you. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. So things like that where I only told him once, he can recall those things. And it's impressive. It makes you look good as a coach.
Well, I know these guys brought up that Kentucky play where it's like, I think it was Eric Stokes was like, you guys got, and I had seen it, but he's like, you got to watch that play because it's just crazy. I've never seen a guy do that. But that's why I say you can't do that. Like people talk about instincts. To me, instincts are honed by film study and just your processing.
Couldn't agree more. You got, had a conversation with some guys earlier this week, and they were just talking about gambling. I said, it's more, it's not gambling when you prepare for it.
Right.
Your process of elimination kind of a deal. So that's a manual.
There was also there was a defensive backs coach here, Steve Jackson, who played in the league. And I remember talking to him years ago, and he would say there are some guys who just can take the ball away. And then other guys come back to the sidelines and say, oh, coach, I saw it. And next time I see this, I'm going to do this. And the next time comes, they still don't do it because they don't have, there's something inside them where they don't trust it too. So they might see us, but you also have to trust what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to have the confidence, it's a confidence factor, and he's supremely confident to go make that play, to know that you're right. And he's had that since day one. So he stepped on campus.
Because again, he had 6 of those taken to the house. Mm-hmm. Are there any other ones that stand out to you? I mean, the Kentucky one is a step above, but are there any other ones that stand out to you for, just like you said, recognition and then going and making the play?
Yeah, I think of his freshman year when we're playing in the bowl game versus Tulsa, and we're playing, just cover 3, basic cover 3. And the curl flat defender has to carry the out and up or the wheel, as most guys will say, and he's dividing the post, and there's a lot of space between them. And we talked about it all week, man. They're going to try to create that separation. If you can come off, and I kept just saying, those guys get beat. If you can man turn off of this and go make a tackle to get these guys down to save us, that's all I thought we could get out of it. No, he sees it, comes off the post, intercepts the wheel route, takes it to the house. He's just he's a cut above, man. He mentally prepares himself, and he's mentally confident, so confident in how he does it. It's unbelievable.
Does he how much, because when you're doing that, I mean, a lot of film study has to go into that. Or is he just like, and some people just get it right away, like you said, but how much was he doing extra film study and all that?
Yeah, he's always done extra film, ramped up as he got older, and he understood that every game is basically an open book test. But he's always been a film guy. He's always been a junkie. He's always been a kid who would raise his hand as a freshman and ask questions. If he didn't understand something, hey, what do you mean by that, coach? So he never shy to ask questions and learn. He's kind of a sponge. Once you tell him something once, he has it. You show him something once, he has it. There's not going to be reteaching of things. And I think one of the more impressive things is sometimes we'll pull stuff from things we hadn't done for 4 or 5 weeks, and he can go out and execute during a game because he can just recall that well. So, again, above the neck football separates that guy.
And I was going to say, because you played in the league, and you played with guys like Champ Bailey, and you played in a couple different systems. You played for some really good defensive coaches. So what did you see in him early that suggested he could go down this path?
The instincts and the ball skills, that it truly is rare. You get a lot of players who can go through ball drills and they can catch the ball. They got good hands, right? But you put them in a live football situation, and it's just not there. It doesn't show up in the same way. For him, from day one, it always showed up the same way. The ball was in the air, and he could get to it. He was going to get to it, and he was going to get his hands on it. So, that is not as that is so rare that people don't quite understand it. You can teach a guy to be better at it, but they'll never be elite if they don't have those traits.
So the other guy, like I covered Deshaun Jackson here, and who was tracked the ball down the field exceptionally well. had the great speed, but tracked it well. And he would talk about how baseball helped him with that.
Yeah.
Emmauel played baseball too. How much do you think that helped him as well?
Oh, I think so. I think all sports help in a little in some form, right? Sure. He's a big basketball guy. He was a big baseball guy, and those things translate. So when we're playing man-to-man coverage, his basketball skills, the lateral ability to change the direction, that helps him in man-to-man coverage. Then the baseball aspect of it helps him tracking the ball. So I think I think every sport has something that kind of lends itself to helping you play football.
How much did having a guy like Martin Emerson too there with him and how did they help each other?
Yeah, you want to talk about two of the most competitive jokers you'll ever meet. Now, because when Martin was kind of solidified as the starter when Junior came in, and Junior got right under his wing, and they were thick as thieves. And Junior's trying to learn everything he could, pick up on things, understand how to be a college athlete, college football player, and he did. And Martin brought him along, and then from there I'm telling you, two guys who practiced the hardest, who studied the hardest, who never wanted to take a rep off, whether it was practice or a game. Just two competitive jokers who really competed with each other to be the best, and they got the best out of each other. So Martin did an unbelievable relationship between those two, but also not a rivalry, but a standard that they set to push each other.
How did they compete with each other?
Oh, and everything. I mean, who has the most picks on the day? In film study, who had the best game? Just every way. They competed against each other, and they never talked about it, but I could always feel it.
Well, and also when you say they practice the hardest, like a lot of guys at the level are going to practice hard. What did they do differently, and what did Emmauel do differently that makes you say that?
Yeah, we talked about. I told them, hey, walkthroughs are full speed mentally, but walkthrough pace physically. And they really took heart to that. They put their bodies in the position they're going to make those plays in. I mean, full speed mentally and everything that they did. They took that serious. And then when you get out on the field, they never took a rep off. They always finished plays in the right position, the way we talked about it. And, sometimes you don't get great looks from the scout team, and they will be barking at the scout team. That's not what it looks like. Make sure you're giving me the right look, because they just took their job that serious.
How much did, also being in the SEC, when you're a corner and you're going to see the Devontae Smiths of the world and all that, like how much did that help him? And what were some matchups that you enjoyed maybe a little bit more watching him in?
I think for Emmauel was this past year versus the kid from LSU, Butte. That was a fun one to watch. Those two battles. Junior was fired up for that game. I think his freshman year versus Devontae Smith, that was a good one. Yeah. I think his reps versus the green kid from Georgia a couple years ago. I mean, that was a great battle. I mean, the list goes on. I could think of 5 more. I mean, it's just every week in this league, you're gonna have that kind of matchup, and they always rose to the occasion.
Did you see something different in him during the week before those games?
No, because I think every game he was excited for the opportunity. Right. But I think I could see him get a little bit more excited in pregame. Because he's so stoic all the time. He's kind of just a calm, cool cat. I could see him get a little more excited in the pregame to play those games because he knew what was coming.
And I think I've seen from you, and I've even with the coaches here, they'll talk about his presence in the room, and there's a charisma. And it's funny because when you're around him, I know Fred Smoot went to Mississippi State, and Fred is a character, right? Yeah. Emmauel, and so but Emmauel seems to be very quiet when you're meeting him. So what does he show that, what is he like behind the scenes that makes people say that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of a feeling, right? When you see the way he works, how he handles his business, he does everything with supreme confidence, right? and people gravitate towards him and people follow him, and you can see that. So I think it's more of a feeling than it is him being boisterous. But when he does open his mouth, you see it too. You know, he makes people smile. There isn't a person on campus that doesn't love Emmauel because they have an experience with him, you know, where he's made them feel great, you know. So just part of his personality.
The other thing, obviously, that everybody talks about with him is the weight. And I didn't want to ask you this earlier because I think there's so many other parts to his game that that matter more. But that is a part. I think if he were 15 pounds heavier, he's a top 10 pick. So what did you think about that? And when did you get past thinking that he had to put on more to do this?
Yeah, you know, his freshman year is 150 pounds, and we're going to play an all SEC schedule because of COVID. And we open with the national, you know, the defending national champions, LSU. And I want to get him in the game, but I'm so scared because I'm responsible for him. I'm like 150 pounds. So I put him out there for a couple snaps. They run the ball right at him. I pull him out. He doesn't do anything wrong. I just pull him out because I'm nervous. Martin actually goes down. So I got to put him in. And he's banging. He's throwing his body around and he's making plays and he's talking, you know, he's talking a little trash, ends up with an interception. And I'm like, this kid, I mean, sometimes you don't overthink it. And that's what I had to tell myself in that scenario. I said, but when we talked a lot about how to tackle, what scenarios you're going to be in, how people are going to attack you, right? And we worked on a lot of those things throughout the week. And I mean, people ran his very first start versus Kentucky, you know, they would flip the back, the big running back they got, who's a heck of a player, and they'd flip the back and run right at Emmauel, and Emmauel would come up and boom, knock him down, and that, you know, it was it. And I'm looking around like that's the only thing that I was hesitant on, and he showed me. So he's a guy, you know.
And he put on, if he was there at 150, he's now around 170. So he did put on the weight. Like, how did the, you know, what was that process like? Is that just, you know, what was that process like?
He worked hard at it. But honestly, it came natural because he was just a young guy coming from high school, probably didn't eat correctly, got to college, started to eat better, you know, putting the right things in his body. And as you get older, you gain more weight. So, you know, I don't think the weight will be an issue. I think he'll be 180, between 180, 185, and it'll be a thing of the past, you know.
And when he was also one of 10 siblings, I'm sure there may have been a little competition for food in that house.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But the other thing that I noticed about him too, and I didn't sit there and watch every game he played, but you'd see on like some screens and some run plays where if he diagnoses it fast, he beats a guy to the spot. So there was a screen in one game where the guard's pulling to go get him, but he reads it so well and so fast that he gets his hands on the guy, he turns him in, someone else, he helps make the tackle. The guy can't, the guard doesn't block him. So, you know what I mean? Like there are other ways, you know, it seems like there are other ways for him to mitigate that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And he knows that, right? He knows how people may try to attack him. So he works on those things. He puts himself in those situations. Like I said, he's playing the game above the neck. And he knows how to defeat a pulling guard or how to defeat a tackle, you know, on the screen or a big receiver out on the perimeter. So he puts himself in those situations and he works on them. And he, quite frankly, outsmarts them most of the time. Yeah,
and that's what I said. That, you know, there are ways that you can use your strength to your advantage, and the strength is the quickness in diagnosing, and so or the speed and diagnosing the play. So use that to your advantage. You played for Jack Del Rio, huh? In Jacksonville.
I think they signed me, and I can't quite remember, but I played for him for a little bit. I think I was there a couple games.
Okay, what do you remember about him?
I just know he's intense. I think I remember mostly my combine interview with him. He was an intense guy, you know, just and very sharp. But like I said, the thing that sticks out to me the most was how intense he was, which you love, you know, as a defensive player.
And then you also played with Champ and Brian Dawkins. What kind of things did you learn learn from them that you maybe have transferred to coaching that maybe rubs off on a guy like Emmauel? What things did you learn?
Yeah, I mean, a ton. Just kind of work ethic, you know, just being a pro. I talk to Emmauel. I said, you got to start being a pro now if you really want to be a pro as a freshman. It's a process, and you got to learn it, and you got to be consistent. And he really took hold of that. And I just remember my rookie year, those guys kind of taking me under the wing and trying to teach me how to be a pro, which goes a long way. Consistency, has results that eventually you want. You can get if you're consistent, and that's what I try to preach to them the most. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned from those guys.
Did you tell him that you picked off Peyton Manning?
No, I didn't tell him that. The kids nowadays, they Google you. So when I got the job, they all Googled me. Oh, you picked off Peyton Manning. I did, and I got him. The old fake cover 3 drop in the quarters.
There you go. Where do you? And the last thing then with Emmauel, because it seemed one of the things they liked about him is the versatility. So how, what is in terms of zone man, how does he fit best, or why does he work in both?
Yeah, I think he works in both because, like I said, how smart he is. His feel and his instincts in zone, right, are second to none in my opinion. And makes a lot of plays in zone. And playing off man, which making it look like zone. And man coverage, he's so quick laterally, right? And his arms are so long that people can't to run routes. You really got to try and run around him, which he's a 4-3 guy. You can't do it, right? And he has ball skills like a receiver. So if the ball is in the air, it's a problem for you. So I just think he fits in both. There was never a time where I thought, I don't want to put him in that situation. It was always like, it got to a point, his sophomore, junior year, we talk situational stuff, but hey, you feel it out. You go down there and play what you feel is best because you're equally good at both.
Right. Anything else we need to know about Emmauel up here?
You got a stud.
Darcel, I appreciate your time, man. I really do. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's easy to grow more vibrant plants. Just feed them with Miracle Grow Shake and Feed. Shake a little around your plants once every 3 months and you're good. That's all you need to know. Not even sure what to talk about for the rest of this commercial. I guess I could list off my favourite plants. The weeping fig, honeysuckles, any kind of fern, I'm a sucker for a fern. Spider plants, roses, classic. Oh wait, I forgot to have to say the slogan too. Miracle Grow, all you need to know to grow.
This episode is sponsored by State Farm. Buying insurance can be complicated, and you might have a lot of questions, like, what if my policy doesn't cover that? Or, what if I need to make a claim in the middle of the night? Good news, State Farm is there for all your what-ifs. You can reach them 24/7, talk through any questions with your agent, and you can even file a claim on the State Farm mobile app. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com to get a quote today.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Darcel for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode on Thursday night / Friday morning on the video. Talk to you next time.